Parshas Vayishlach. The Parsha opens with a setup to the confrontation between Yaakov Avinu and his estranged brother Esav. The Torah relates in the beginning of the Parsha, this is Perek Lamed Beis, Pasuk Zayin, the agents that Yaakov sent come back with a report that Esav has massed, in essence, an army. He's coming to confront you with 400 men. What's Yaakov's response? Vayira Yaakov ma'od. Yaakov was freaked out. He was very scared. Ma'od, very scared. Vayetzer and he was distressed. What was he scared about? What was he distressed about? Well, Rashi says that he was scared that he might be killed. And he was distressed that he might kill. The Talmudic principle is, somebody comes to kill you, you get up first and you kill him. And both scenarios troubled him greatly. So you can ask, why was Yaakov afraid? Does it make sense in this context? Didn't Hashem say, this is back in Vayetze, in Chavches Tesvav 28:15. He says, I am with you, and I will guard you wherever you go. Didn't Yaakov trust God? Didn't he have bitachon in Hashem? What is going on? Why is he afraid? God promised him that he would be with him. You have no greater shmira, you have no greater protection than the Almighty himself. Now we have another question. Because following this expression of his fear and his anxiety, then the Torah also says, this is now in Pasuk Yud Aleph, this is Lamed Beis Yud Aleph, that's 32:11. Katonti mikol hachasadim. This is Yaakov saying, I have become too small for all of the kindnesses. Umikol ha'emes asher osisa sabdecha. And from all of the emes is truth that you have done to your servant, meaning referring to himself. What is it? We can understand. He thinks he's small, he's not deserving of Hashem's kindnesses. What's this talk about emes, about truth? What does truth have to do with this? So many commentaries say that emes refers to Hashem fulfilling a promise. It shares a common source with the word emunah, which is faithfulness. So Yaakov is declaring that he is too small for Hashem to fulfill his promises to him. How does that happen? And kindnesses, kindnesses are chasadim, are kindnesses that haven't been promised, and they may not even be deserved. So Yaakov is feeling quite inadequate. Why? Why does he feel he is unworthy? And Rashi comments on katonti, on this verse that we just read, verse 11. He says that Yaakov felt that his merits had diminished because of the chasadim. There's this notion that to the extent that a righteous person, a tzaddik, enjoys benefit from this world, that it reduces his ultimate goodwill or capital or schar reward. And apparently Yaakov is feeling so overwhelmed by Hashem's kindnesses that he feels no longer deserving of anything more. But didn't Hashem promise it to him? So Rashi says, wait a second. Yaakov feels that he may have been sullied by sin. He may have been made filthy by sin. It's hard for us to imagine. This is Yaakov Avinu we're talking about. What exactly is he referring to? So the Medrash Hagadol says something which I think is quite profound. It says that tzaddikim differ from rishonim. The righteous differ from evil in that although their good deeds outnumber their sins, they outweigh their sins. Nevertheless, they undervalue their accomplishments and they overvalue their shortcomings. The Ramban defines, in Hilchos Tshuva, the Ramban defines a tzaddik as somebody whose merits outweigh his sin, his demerits, if you will. And Yaakov was a tzaddik, but he placed different values on that. Now, is that a shortcoming in his personality? Well, there's a book by a fellow by the name of McCormack. I believe it's called Everything They Didn't Teach You at Harvard Business School. It's near the very end of the book. I think it's an epilogue, actually, where he relates a story that he witnessed of a tournament. I think it was an exhibition game between two great golfers. One of them is Arnold Palmer and the other was Gary Player. And each one thought that the other was ahead. And McCormack observes, who was the agent for both of them, he observed that this it pushed them to greater accomplishment. And this sense of overvaluing or overweighting one's shortcomings and undervaluing one's accomplishments actually may have a productive use for a person. In other words, if a person is confident, they tend not to accomplish as much. I've frequently thought about the winningest season of the Chicago Bulls, in which they only lost 10 games. And half of those games were to teams that were mediocre. They played under 500 ball. Now, I'm not a sports psychologist, but it's pretty evident to me that here the World Championship Bulls are beating all the best teams in the National Basketball Association, and they lose half of their losses to mediocre teams. Because if you go on the court and you think, okay, you've got this, you're confident, you're actually overconfident. When you're overconfident, it comes back to bite you and you lose. So Yaakov is demonstrating the attitude of a spiritual champion, which we call it Cited. Arnold Palmer, Gary Player, Michael Jordan, great champions in sport who had this drive that came from constantly feeling like they needed to prove something. They need to come from behind in order to win. And so, and the Medrash Rabbah fills in some of this rationale. It wasn't just an unfounded fantasy on Yaakov's part, but the Medrash says that Yaakov thought to himself all those years that Esau was living in Eretz Yisrael and I was living in Haran. He has the schus, he has the merit of having lived in the land of Israel. All those years that he had an opportunity to perform the mitzvah of kibbud av va'em, of honoring his parents, which Yaakov did not have because he spent 20-something years away, maybe more. So he saw certain merits. He overvalued Esau's merits. He undervalued his own. Bottom line is that he lacked self-confidence. So what did Hashem do? And this is despite Hashem's assurance that he'll be with him, because Yaakov felt that he may have messed up and may no longer be deserving of God's protection. So Hashem arranges a confrontation. This feeling of inadequacy may be laudable so long as it doesn't prevent you from accomplishing. But if it takes you out of the game, it's not a healthy thing. So what does Hashem do? Hashem arranges for an exhibition match, an exhibition fight for his life between Yaakov and this enigmatic Ish that shows up. This is in Pasuk Chaf Hey, verse 25. Rashi says that this Ish, this man, unnamed man, is actually Saro Shel Esav. He's Esav's ministering angel. So there's kind of a shadow boxing taking place between Yaakov and Esav. But it's Yaakov and Esav's ministering angel. And it's a tough battle. And Yaakov gets injured. Vateka b'kaf yerav Yaakov. And Yaakov is Tzoleal Yerecho. He gets hit in his hip socket, and he's limping. He's hurt, but he wins. And he wins decisively. So the contest actually restores Yaakov's confidence, and it empowers him to confront Esav in the flesh. His confidence is restored. Now, there's a book called Playing in the Zone, Examining the Spirituality of Sports. And in it, the authors quote Bill Russell, who is a very accomplished professional basketball player, center for the Boston Celtics. And he said something to the effect of, your opponent becomes your partner in elevating your level of play. We need opposition in order to help us rise. Sometimes that opposition is ourselves, is internal. Sometimes it's external. Sometimes it's the Yetzer Hara, it's the evil inclination. We're called upon to rise above the adversary, whoever that adversary is. And the more we do it, the more confidence we get. So this is also how the Ramban understands back in Parshas with the tests of Avraham. V'Elokim nisas Avraham, and the Ramban says that it's milashon nes, which is Hashem tested Avraham, but it's also a banner. In other words, it brings something to the fore, it brings it up that's visible. And he says Hashem understands, God knows what a person's potential is, but the person may not understand what his potential is. And the challenges that we face, we may understand from this parsha that the challenges that we face are designed to bring out the best in us, not to crush us, not to make it impossible. Sometimes we need the help of others to get by. So we have to do all kinds of things. But in the end, the challenges are for our benefit, to empower us to be able to reach new heights. Those challenges become our partner in elevating our level of living. Have a good Shabbos.